You know that incredibly disorienting feeling when you first wake up from a really hyper-vivid dream?
Oh, absolutely, where you just feel completely thrown off.
Right. Like you open your eyes, the ceiling of your bedroom comes into focus, but your heart is just pounding.
Yeah, your body hasn't realized you're awake yet.
Exactly. And there's this lingering, just really heavy sense of melancholy.
Mhm.
Like you've just been left behind by someone, or I don't know, you missed out on something massive. And you can't even articulate why you're sad.
It's a universally unsettling experience, honestly, because, you are physically safe in your bed, but emotionally, you're completely bruised by a world that technically never even existed.
Which is just wild to think about.
It really is. And to understand why that happens, we kind of have to look at the mechanics of REM sleep. During those vivid dreams, your brain's emotional center, the amygdala, is highly active, right? It's processing real-world stress.
But the logical part of your brain is just off.
Exactly. Your prefrontal cortex, which handles logic and reality checking, is essentially powered down. So your brain is feeling very real emotions, but attaching them to completely fabricated, just bizarre scenarios.
Well, instead of just shaking off that feeling today, we're actually going to decode it.
Oh,
Welcome to our deep dive.
I'm really excited for this one.
Me too. So we've got our hands on this wildly detailed, incredibly introspective journal entry. It's got claustrophobic badminton games, pagodas, corporate anxiety.
A whole mix of things.
Yeah, total mix. And we are going to use it as a map. The goal for this deep dive is to understand how our subconscious takes the most random imagery and uses it to process the very real waking life anxieties we all face.
Things like the pressure of adulthood, right, and that desperate desire to belong.
Exactly. The exhausting fear of not keeping up with the crowd.
Okay.
Well, let's unpack this, because the author of this journal does something I think is really rare.
They do. I mean, most people try to interpret dreams as, like, literal prophecies, or they just dismiss them entirely as random noise.
Right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
I dreamed my teeth fell out, whatever.
Exactly. But this person treats the residual emotion of the dream, that specific shade of melancholy, as diagnostic data. They work backward from the feeling to understand a subconscious blockage in their waking life.
It's almost like an exercise in applied psychology.
It really is. It reveals how our brains use physical space and objects to represent abstract social pressures.
Okay, so let's jump into the actual environment the subconscious built here, because it starts in a deeply stressful setting.
Very stressful.
Yeah. The dreamer finds themselves in a university gym, attempting to play a game of badminton. But the immediate problem is the physical space. The gym is packed shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, the journal notes that there's maybe 5 to 10 centimeters of space between people, which is nothing.
Just impossible to move.
Right. And that tells us immediately that we aren't dealing with a memory here. We are dealing with a metaphor. The brain often struggles to represent abstract concepts like societal pressure or workplace expectations visually.
So it just makes everything super cramped.
Exactly. It translates psychological suffocation into physical claustrophobia. The lack of space to swing a racket is the brain's way of illustrating a waking life environment where the dreamer feels they have absolutely no room to maneuver or make mistakes or simply breathe.
Wow. But the people around the dreamers are managing it, right?
Mhm.
Everyone else in this impossibly crowded gym is just happily rallying away, hitting the shuttlecock back and
They're
forth.
very ignorant of the pressure, yeah.
And the dreamers feeling this rising panic, just looking around and wondering why they're the only one failing to participate. So they look down at their hands to figure out what's wrong with their swing.
And this is where the brain's bizarre creativity really kicks into high gear.
It's so weird. They aren't holding a normal badminton racket. The head of the racket has no strings. Instead, it is covered in dozens of table tennis rubbers, glued layer upon layer into this thick, heavy, awkward oval.
I mean, fundamentally useless for the game being played.
Completely useless. And that imagery is just so striking.
It is a perfect visualization of a psychological concept called functional fixedness, basically relying on old cognitive schemas.
Right.
The table tennis rubbers represent the dreamer's past experiences and strategies. In psychology, a schema is a cognitive framework that helps us organize and interpret information.
So if a strategy worked brilliantly for you in a previous phase of life, say during your academic years, or maybe in a past relationship, your brain just defaults to that exact same strategy when faced with a new challenge.
Exactly. And the dream is illustrating the painful realization that bringing a ping pong strategy to a badminton game isn't just ineffective. The heavy, layered baggage of those past successes is actively hindering current progress.
It's like trying to use the cheat code from a completely different video game and wondering why you're losing.
That's a great analogy. You're pressing the right buttons, but for the wrong game entirely.
Right. And the default human reaction to failing in a competitive environment is usually to blame ourselves. We think, we aren't fast enough or smart enough or working hard enough.
But the dream isolates the failure to two external factors. The environment is too restrictive to operate in, and the tools being used are entirely wrong for the current mechanics.
Which is such a relief, honestly.
It is. Recognizing that distinction is a massive cognitive leap. The dreamer doesn't just stand there absorbing the failure, they make a conscious decision to leave the court, to change the rubber.
Which, in real life, stepping away from a competitive environment to recalibrate is so often viewed as quitting.
Right, society tells us to push through, but the subconscious is reframing that retreat. It's presenting the act of stepping off the court not as a failure of ability, but as a necessary, healthy self-correction. You cannot fix the wrong tool while you are actively being served at.
You need a minute to breathe. But I'm a bit lost on what happens next, though. We're in this adult anxiety dream about restrictive environments and wrong tools, and suddenly the simple act of leaving the gym to fix the racket triggers a complete pivot.
A total scene change.
Yeah. The dreamer is suddenly confronted with a figure from their past, their older brother. The journal notes a waking life memory here. Back in middle school, the author only joined the table tennis club because their older brother said it was fun.
Right.
So why does a childhood memory suddenly hijack an adult stress dream?
Because the subconscious doesn't organize memories chronologically, it organizes them emotionally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the act of examining an old tool, the ping pong rubber, retrieves the emotional origin of that tool. The brother represents a time when choices weren't made out of a solitary drive for career success or, adult milestones.
Because in childhood, our choices are just so deeply tethered to connection.
Exactly. We play the game because someone we love is playing the game. The brain is juxtaposing the sterile, claustrophobic isolation of the adult badminton court with the warm, community-driven memory of table tennis.
And in the dream, the brother is putting on an absolute clinic. He is executing these flawless rallies, surrounded by peers who are eager to learn from him and just be in his orbit.
He's the center of attention.
Yeah. And the dreamer watches this from the outside and is just hit with a desperate, frantic urge to hurry back to the game.
Consider the neurochemistry of that moment, though. The dreamer is experiencing nostalgia, which floods the brain with dopamine and oxytocin.
Those are the reward and bonding chemicals, right?
Yes. But they are experiencing it from the outside looking in, which spikes cortisol, the stress hormone. The panic to fix the racket isn't about a passion for the sport of table tennis.
It's a profound, primal fear of losing connection.
Precisely. The dreamer sees a community forming around the brother's joy and realizes they are standing in the cold.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. We usually treat envy or jealousy as a purely toxic emotion, something we need to suppress or unlearn.
Sure, that's the standard view.
But looking at this sequence, is the author actually saying that this envy is a compass? Like that it points directly toward what we secretly want to be a part of?
I love that reframing. It is highly perceptive, and the author's own analysis arrives at a similar conclusion. The envy isn't a malicious desire to tear the brother down.
Right.
It is an informational signal pointing directly toward what the dreamer secretly craves. Beneath the anxiety of rushing to fix the racket is a terror of abandonment.
So when the desire to belong collides with the fear of being left behind, it creates that very specific, heavy melancholy we talked about at the very beginning.
Exactly. The dream is forcing the author to realize they don't miss the sport itself. They miss the shared experience of participating in something alongside people they care about.
That makes so much sense. And that frantic urge to rejoin the circle, it drives the dreamer to find a place to fix this bizarre racket, which leads to a strangely calculated choice in an increasingly surreal landscape.
The dream logic really takes over here.
It really does. They stumbled across a building that is structurally a 5-tier pagoda, but it's deliberately disguised as a standard 2-story building.
Such a specific and weird image.
Totally. And hanging on the second floor door is a sign promising a discount coupon if you use that specific entrance. The dreamer immediately chooses that door.
We are seeing the brain under cognitive load here. When humans feel rushed, anxious, or fearful of being left behind like the dreamer trying to get back to the brothers' rally. Our brains rely on heuristics.
Mental shortcuts, basically.
Right. Heuristics ease the cognitive burden of decision-making. The discount coupon is a visual heuristic for efficiency and progress. The brain thinks, I'm behind schedule, therefore I must take the most profitable immediate route to catch up.
It's like paying for the express toll road just because it feels like you're doing something proactive, even if it doesn't actually get you to your goal any faster. Logically that merging into that lane probably won't help, but the anxiety of sitting still in traffic is unbearable.
Yes. You pay for the toll road just to feel the sensation of forward momentum. But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the irony is that the shortcut doesn't lead to a repair shop.
No, it leads to an interrogation.
Exactly. Inside the pagoda, the dreamer encounters a former physical education teacher from their university days.
And the journal specifically notes, this teacher used to coach national sports festival teams, right? Which in Japan is a massive high-stakes athletic competition.
It is. So this figure represents immense institutional authority and discipline. And the very first thing this authority figure does is accuse the dreamer of slacking off. He assumes the dreamer used the second-floor entrance to hide and sleep during class.
Which is such an unfair accusation, honestly.
Yeah.
But the dreamer pushes back completely. They insist they aren't hiding. They just desperately need to fix their racket to get back to the rally.
Which is the crucial psychological turning point of the entire journal entry.
Oh, really? Why?
Because the teacher is offering a sanctioned escape route. He is an authority figure giving the dreamer permission to fail by saying, it's okay, you can just hide here. The dreamer refuses the out.
Ah, I see.
Despite the crushing pressure of the gym, despite having the wrong tools, and despite the panic of falling behind, the dreamer has no desire to run away from life. They are actively fighting to find a way to participate in what matters to them.
Wow, that's incredibly empowering. And the moment the dreamer refuses to hide, the entire simulation breaks. The structured, understandable microcosm of the school gym and the university campus completely dissolves.
That's a massive shit.
It morphs into a massive, chaotic modern metropolis resembling Tokyo or Osaka. The students in gym clothes vanish. In their place is just a sea of adults in business attire, all waiting at a massive city crosswalk.
Right, the landscape of adulthood.
And the respected PE teacher. He suddenly morphs into someone the journal describes as resembling Yamada from the TV show Sasuke, which listeners might know better as the original Ninja Warrior.
A fascinating visual shift. The brain is updating the environment to reflect adult reality.
But why does a respected, disciplined sports coach devolve into a guy wearing flashy clothes and a thick gold necklace, bragging about a fake multinational corporation? The Yamada character starts telling the dreamer about his overseas construction work.
It's all a facade.
Yeah. He admits it's just him and occasionally his family, but he deliberately calls it the Yamada Group to make it sound massive. It feels incredibly disjointed from the school setting.
It feels disjointed because the transition from school to society is inherently disjointed. In the educational system represented by the gym and the coach, the metrics for success are universal and clearly defined.
You know exactly what you have to do to get an A.
Exactly. You know the rules, you know your peers, and progress is measured by standardized grades and clear hierarchies. When you graduate into the adult world, the massive city that shared framework shatters entirely.
Because suddenly there isn't a single curriculum anymore. Everyone is playing a completely different game.
Exactly that. You are packed shoulder to shoulder with thousands of people at a crosswalk, but everyone is heading to a different destination. This creates a profound sense of existential isolation.
So what does this all mean? Is this bizarre Yamada character a critique of fake it till you make it corporate culture? Or is it a reflection of the author's own insecurity? Do we all feel the need to invent our own Yamada group just to prove we belong in the adult world?
Honestly, it's both. The Yamada character perfectly encapsulates the psychological defense mechanism known as status anxiety. Without the clear structure of school to validate his worth, he feels invisible in the massive city.
So he just makes himself sound bigger?
Right. To counter that terror of insignificance, he inflates his identity. He invents the Yamada group. He uses flashy clothes and exaggerated titles as armor to prove he belongs in the adult space.
So Yamada isn't just a caricature of corporate greed. He's actually a reflection of the dreamer's own anxiety about not having a clearly defined, impressive adult label yet.
Yes, the brain is showing the dreamer two distinct ways of handling adult isolation. You can manufacture a fake, inflated identity like Yamada, projecting success while secretly terrified of being a nobody. Or you can stand at the crosswalk and confront the reality of the crowd.
Which brings us to the absolute climax of the dream. The tension at this massive city crosswalk is palpable. Yama is bragging, the crowds of suited adults are waiting, and the dreamer is just standing among them.
The tension is building.
And then the traffic light turns green. The entire massive crowd steps off the curb in perfect, unified motion. But the dreamer is completely paralyzed. They cannot make their legs move.
A truly devastating image.
They just watch this sea of humanity surge forward, feeling utterly frozen and left behind. That is the exact moment they wake up, staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by that heavy melancholy.
Unpacking the mechanics of that paralysis is the ultimate revelation of the journal. The green light represents societal milestones, the normative social influence that tells us when we are supposed to get the prestigious job, buy the house, or start a family.
The expected path.
Right. The crowd moving in unison is the illusion of a single correct timeline.
The paralysis feels like a total failure to launch, like they're broken.
But it isn't. The paralysis is the subconscious mind hitting the brakes. The brain realizes that just because the crowd starts walking doesn't mean the dreamer is obligated to walk in that exact same direction.
Oh.
The feeling of being left behind is generated by the cognitive distortion that there is only one crosswalk and only one green light in life. The dreamer can't step forward because their authentic destination isn't across that specific street with that specific crowd chasing Yamada's version of success.
That completely reframes the entire feeling of waking up sad. It connects to a very common waking life trap, I think.
Well, so?
It's like trying to perfectly recreate a magical childhood summer vacation. You remember the complete lack of schedule, the freedom, the specific friends, and as an adult, you might try to book the exact same beach house and force a literal recreation of that week.
Right, trying to capture lightning in a bottle.
Exactly. But you can't physically go back to that time, and trying to force it will just make you sad. Because you realize the magic isn't in the location anymore. The context of your life has changed.
That analogy strikes at the very core of what the author concludes. The melancholy comes from bringing the wrong tools to the current challenge. You cannot take the ping pong racket of your youth and try to win the adult badminton game.
You just can't.
You cannot go back to the structured, safe gymnasium of university. And you cannot force yourself to walk across a city street just because everyone else is doing it.
But you can identify what made it great. The freedom, the lack of schedule, and build that into your weekend today. You have to extract the underlying mechanism of the memory, not the literal events.
Precisely. The author realizes they need to identify the abstract feeling they are nostalgic for. Was it the unburdened joy of shared effort with the brother? Was it the feeling of clear, unambiguous participation before the isolation of the city set in?
Finding the core of it.
Yes. Once you isolate the emotional core, you can find a completely new, contextually appropriate way to integrate that feeling into your adult life.
It is incredible how much raw data the brain processes while we are completely unconscious. We traced a path from the claustrophobia of a cramped badminton court, examined the psychological baggage of a bizarre table tennis racket, analyzed why our stressed brains reach for discount coupons in weird pagodas.
A lot of ground covered.
Yeah, and ended up frozen at a city crosswalk watching a guy in a gold chain march ahead. The through line connecting all of this chaos is actually deeply reassuring. Feeling left behind usually just means you're trying to use an old map for a new territory.
The dream was never a punishment or a highlight reel of failures. It was a diagnostic report. The territory of adulthood is unstructured and isolating, but acknowledging that allows you to stop trying to force old solutions onto new problems.
It is an invitation to update the map. So we want to leave you with a final challenge to mull over. Next time you wake up from a bizarre, seemingly random dream and feel a lingering sadness, don't just brush it off as your brain being weird or something you ate before bed.
Right, don't ignore it.
Lean into the discomfort. Ask yourself, what specific feeling was my subconscious trying to remind me that I'm missing right now? And more importantly, how can I build a little bit of that exact feeling into my waking life today using the tools I actually have?